Do you want to know more about the C-Class facelift? Do you especially want to know how the Mercedes C43 AMG drives? Well, I can tell you more about that here on Autogefuehl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. Today with Thomas. Exterior, interior and the driving experience. In general, everything you need to know about the C-Class, or C-Class as we say in Germany, and the C43 performance model here, the Mercedes AMG. And we'll give you a lot of driving fun on the motorway, German Autobahn as well, and winding corners here in the region of the River Mosel. Very beautiful shots. Stay tuned, especially till the end of the driving part. And now in full HD, full screen and full length, let's go! Miles an hour. That was 100 to 200. Now this next hairpin corner at C. Shifting down very well. Cool. That is yo. That's some Autogefuehl for sure. So all the things I'm going to tell you count for all the 4 different models they have from the C-Class. So the sedan, which we have here today, the coupe, the cabriolet, and also the estate or so-called T model. So 4 different body styles here in the C-Class lineup. And we'll also have different videos for you now already and also soon to come. Today you have the focus on the C43 sedan, which has this new front with the new headlight unit also. The coupe and the convertible always come with LEDs as standard now. And this one here is the optional multi-beam LED, which also has the high beam with LED technology for the best light view. And they've also changed the light signature. Also the front grille has been changed. Basically everything has went one step up. So the normal AMG line already has my favorite front grille with the diamond pins and 1 horizontal fin right there. And now the C43 it doesn't have it anymore. Now it has the one from the C63 with the dual AMG fin without the diamond pins, and the C63 gets a completely new one. Well, I really love the diamond pin on the C43. Maybe I can't buy a C43 now again. I have to maybe go for like 300-400 or something with a diamond pin grille with the AMG line. Which front grille do you actually prefer? You know, there's even a very classic one with the C-Class with, you know, with the top star everyone wants to rip off again. I think it's safer in the way here. And also hyacinth red is the exterior color for today. 4.68 meters or 15'3" is the total length of the Mercedes C-Class sedan. Basically the same also with the other versions. The sedan, of course, with the classic roof shape in the rear and 4 doors as you can see it. The C43 comes automatically with 18-inch rims. Those ones here are the optional 19-inch AMG rims. You can also see it's aerodynamically optimized. It's a wider shaft right there. This improves the aerodynamics. Those wheels here also to the lineup. Pretty spectacular, don't you think so? Then also with a dark cover here for the side mirrors and also around the windows. Overall, it's still a very elegant design. It's not too much. That's what I really like about the C43. Also comes with a bi-turbo 4MATIC logo. 4MATIC, why? Well, this one here has the all-wheel drive and is somewhat, you know, the everyday capable AMG model with 30% in the front torque and 70% to the rear. So you still have a rear wheel bias when driving it. And well, they have tuned the engine. I will soon tell you more about the engine, and also worth listening. You've heard that in the introduction. Let's first continue with the rear. In the rear, the recent product update changed also the tail lights. They now have a different light signature. As you can see, I also have turned it on at the moment. It looks a little bit more modern, definitely. However, biggest difference into the coupe and the convertible is that there you have those horizontal tail lights, which look a little sportier to me than this sedan rear here. So from those four different body styles they have, the sedan in the rear is to me the least pleasing one. What do you think? Here the C43 comes with additional small wing lip in the way that it's still elegant, and then the big diffuser in the lower part, and those four exhaust tips, the outer parts here and the rest part, this is basically just beauty. Well, maybe it also adds a little bit to the sound, but the real exhaust is really way in there behind those tips at all. You get this new key, which is more E-Class style, but matte. Well, I like it in a matte way, and it's very slim indeed. Then, towards the doors, let's check the closing sound. Standard C-Class and standard good. Then, inside of the doors, a lot of leatherette is being used here in the C43, all soft touch. Then, for example, you can get this matte aluminum style in a sporty way. Seat controls are all there, 3 memory spots. And with the C-Class facelift, you can also now get, for example, new wooden inlets. If you like them, you can then, just go for the ones you like. Optional Burmester sound system, pretty decent sound. Also, it's good that you can also put some bigger bottles right there that does fit, and the control for the rear trunk is right there. Then the AMG cockpit is defined by this new AMG steering wheel. It's completely new now, with a flat bottom, and also with Alcantara at the sides. Me likey, yes. And you can see that the column for the Distronic Plus adaptive cruise control is now right here at the steering wheel, so no separate column. But here then the control of the steering wheel is a little bit easier. I will tell you more about then those touchpads of the steering wheel later when we see the full cockpit overview. This is interesting here, this this very widely stretched above the cockpits, really nice from design. And if we take a look at the seats, basically 2 seats available, a normal sports seat, which comes standard with the C43, but not this one. This one here is the optional bucket seat. You can see it here, integrated head restraint. This is also a slimmer seat with more shoulder support, but take my advice and go with the standard sports seats. They will offer you more long-term comfort. This one is better for the racetrack, but who isn't using the car for the racetrack, then you also don't need to go for this option, can save the money. Also, the standard sports seats come then with an interesting combination of microfiber Dynamica on the inside and outside Artico leatherette, which is cool. This one here has also animal skin leather parts, this seat here, which is again not necessary. But as far as I know, if you still want to go for that one but want the Alcantara, that should also be possible. But to save the money, go for the base sports seat. You'll have definitely more comfort. Then still the seating position is quite good. It's a mid-size car that also fits my size. I feel that I have more comfort with 1.86 or 6.1 in mid-size cars than in compact cars. Well, of course, more always in SUVs, even if they're smaller, depending on the upright seating position. Then headroom, plenty, it's no problem. When you have the panoramic roof, a small one is available here, then it will be a little bit less. This new steering wheel also has an electric control right here in the reach. On camera, it's always hard to control this seat here, because when doors open, that's not the natural position. Usually the door would be closed. You can also make that lower part here, for example, longer or shorter for taller people. 4 bucket seats, they're still quite okay, but I had a chance to test the base seats at some other stage, and they were really better. So I can also put the key here, just in the middle console, and have just free handsy for you, and it's actually, you know, a nice neutral seating position. The coupe will have a little bit sportier style, for example. You can also check a review of the coupe, also how the view is to the front. So the sedan here is really the classic choice, also seating wise. Of course, in the C43, you sit a little bit lower suspension wise than in the standard C-Class. So besides the new AMG steering wheel here for the AMG models, the biggest product update change is the infotainment system, or the screens in general, for all C-Class models. And it starts on the left side with analog gauges and 5-inch screen in the middle, and on the right side with a smaller 7-inch screen. And this one here is the maximum setup with 12.3-inch on the left, all digital instruments, and on the right side then you get those 10.25-inch screen, a widescreen format, also then with new software. Overall, if you take a look, is a horizontal stress of the dashboard. Also here again, it looks a little bit Porsche-like even, because they wrap everything really tightly. Then with those 3 characteristic air vents, it looks really stylish and sensual here with carbon fiber decor. But as I said earlier, you can also pick, for example, a wood for that if you really like. Then let's take a detailed look here at how you interact with those screens as well, because you can still use the common knob, but then you also have those new touch pads here. The right one for the right thumb. For example, you can zoom in and out on the map with that, or also go to the home menu of the infotainment system on the right. And the left pad then, that is for the left instrument cluster. There you can, for example, change the view, or switch to AMG performance gauges, which are exclusively available here, you know, with boost temperature, oil temperature and stuff, or just have also GPS information on the left part of the screen. I think it's a good solution to control stuff while driving. Still, it's, you know, at some point a little bit complicated how the menu is built up. And one thing also, especially when standing still, it's still no touchscreen. Yes, the newest Mercedes MBUX does have that now, but here the C-Class facelift does not get that yet. And it's still a little bit attached on this whole stuff. This will change later. By the way, here you can also connect your phone with classic Bluetooth, but also Apple CarPlay is available, or Android Auto. So you can then connect it with a cable in the middle box right there. Then if we take a look at the lower part of the middle console, which is really huge for a mid-size car, still a classic climate unit to, you know, make it colder or warmer. I think, you know, I like to have this manual control still be able to. Then in the lower part right here, with a 12-volt power supply and 2 cup holders, which you could also remove. And even more lower, the dynamic select, where you can pick the drive modes. I'll talk about the different drive modes when we actually drive the car. And then right next to that is this classic jog, where you can then, for example, do the classic work on the infotainment system if you don't want to use it on the steering wheel. And well, this one here will be basically removed in the new models. Then not here, it will stay in the C-Class, but I don't see, you know, big advantage to this stuff. They want to have the control that you can control like a touchpad mouse. So this is another way to control the car, but I'm actually never using it. Do you? If you have a C-Class? And last but not least, this nice middle split opening for the armrest, and you see all the clutter you have when you film or when you have smartphones and stuff. And of course the smartphone connectivity is in there, and that doesn't look so clean. So now it looks again very clean. Now let's get to the rear compartment. So, well, legroom wise, the seat should be a little bit higher, that I can better put my feet under the seat, but it's quite okay. You can see it's a mid-size sedan. That's not too much, but also not little, so it's actually okay. Of course, mid-size sedans are not the ones that use the legroom in their very best way. Also, it's more a lying seating position here, very short bench. Headroom-wise, if you have no panoramic roof installed, is quite good. Also works for tall people. If If you have the Estate or the T model, then it of course continues more straight to the rear. That one will be an advantage. Other than that, it's also nice style with the matte aluminum for the rear. The middle seat, by the way, on special request, this is really hard, and with the big middle tunnel, this predominantly rear-wheel driven car, here in this case all-wheel drive has, is really almost impossible that someone sits here on the middle seat, although it has a third seat belt and is actually, you know, registered for that. Isofix at the outer two seats. Then here you can put down an armrest, some more room right there, and cup holders. You can also flip the whole thing as a ski hatch, like this, and then you can load things through. The seats itself, the seat rears here, they have to be flipped from the trunk or released. And if you want, you also can get a 3-zone AC. So in the rear then, you can also have the temperature control for the temperature and the vents if you have rear passengers in a very regular way. Now turned off as the ignition shut off. In the lower part, you just have another storage area. And now to the classic boot or trunk, which has a very funny function, by the way. I mean, it's manual, but then it automatically flips open with those springs, and then you can also do it Homer Simpson style with it. Trunk closed, trunk open. Trunk closed, trunk open. Trunk closed, trunk open. Don't show this to your kids, because probably the next time they'll do this all the way around. Well, then we leave it open, and you can see, well, it's not an Estate, of course. You cannot load things in that easily, but here, standard cabin trolley can also be put right through. It raises a little bit, so you can use it, yes. That's not the most versatile one. And release of the rear bench is then here and also on the other side. By the way, below that, oh my god, it's not painted. Oh no, I'm just kidding. Actually, I think this is totally okay, because who would ever look underneath that? I think we can really say it's okay to save the paint there, maybe for the environment's sake. So here we can load things through. You know, you have to go then with the rear seats, or the ski hatch, as I've shown, you can also do from the rear passenger compartment. I think that's pretty much standard in the segment. If you want more, then you have to go to the Estate. And now, what's powering this thing? Ta-da! This is not the one, you know, the true AMG one man, one engine concept. So it's basically works AMG engine, which is produced in a normal Mercedes plant. For the C43, you get this one here, the 3-liter V6 petrol. Now with 390 horsepower. That's 23 horsepower more than the pre-facelift. So actually pretty much tuned now. 4.7 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour is the acceleration figure. If you want it even faster, then you would need the 4-liter V8 of the C63. So this one here does not get the new inline 6 yet with the 48 volt board and the mild hybrid. This one is still rather the classic layout. So before I tell you everything else with driving, it's an AMG, so let's floor it out. Up 200 kilometers an hour or 125 miles an hour. That was 100 to 200. Or 60 miles to 125 miles. Wow. Thomas's driving lounge with the C43, and why don't we start in sport mode here? That's a decent sound. Sport Plus mode. Wow. They changed that. So that sounds different than the pre-facelift version, definitely. A little bit more powerful. Of course, for the inside of the cabin, all the manufacturers are working with sound enhancers nowadays. Because it's so well insulated, you wouldn't hear so much anymore. Let's get on the motorway. Very good. Side support, basically. Adaptive suspension we have here. So it's not the air suspension, it's a normal adaptive suspension. But as a sporty driver, you might also want that more direct feedback. You could say hello to the cars on the motorway. Wow. Precise feedback here from the steering wheel. They have a very natural steering feeling. No tilting of the car at all. And it feels really light, basically. The steering itself, by the way, I mentioned it earlier, is really large, so it could be a little bit more compact, maybe. But you have great grip with the Alcantara sides here, for sure. And you can also switch through those different driving modes. For example, if you're just in the comfort mode, you let the car roll, relax a little bit more. Also, the exhaust is, not really noticeable then. Then you can go through the, for example, the Sport mode, or then also Sport Plus. And then the throttle input is adjusted. You add more input then when you just slightly press the throttle, car accelerates. Let's see if that steering also changes. Here, great stability also at higher speeds. Back to the comfort again. Yeah, wow. The steering is really light then in the comfort mode. So actually for higher speeds, it's basically safer to have the sportier setup than for the steering, because it doesn't react so fast then. Otherwise it reacts really, really, really fast. Of course, just for dry roads, there's also a so-called slippery mode then. This is then for rainy conditions, when, for example, but since you have the all-wheel drive here in the C43, you're always a little bit safer anyway. 30% in the front, 70% in the rear. That's the all-wheel drive setup. So you have always some more safety. That makes this car here also the more everyday driving life suitable car if you compare it to the C63. And of course, you do save some money. So after the next overtaking, I'll head back to the right lane and I'll drop down in speed a little bit. So let's check the flexibility of that engine. Go back to the Sport Plus mode. See what it does from 100 to 130. Oh, that's already it. I really like the sound. It's not too much, but I think in a very sonorous, low frequency sound from the 6-cylinder engine. And you can also induce this, this plopping sound here. Oh, have you heard that? I'm not sure if you can hear it on camera. When you shift down, you can plop, 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 plop. And also when you shift up, of course. And so using the shifting pedal is really fun, and you really get the feeling you are in direct control of what you're doing with the shifting pedals. So that there's basically a direct connection from the shifting pedals to the exhaust. I think this is a very fun thing they have achieved there. This is, by the way, also just in the sports mode. If I would do it in a comfort mode, you can hardly hear anything. And also the shifting transition is very smooth. And when I'm in the sport mode, I already hear that, feel different. And Sport Plus is again a difference where you can really feel every single detail the car is doing, basically. Very interesting. So, for example, you can also then shift down yourself first before the cars shall react. But the gear isn't really kept in this mode, so if you're at a certain RPM, it shifts up automatically. Let's take a look at this manual mode. We can also press that one. That should actually change it. So if I'm, for example, going back to the third gear now, and then it should not shift up. Yeah. And then this is really interesting. There you feel how the power curve is changing. You know, at some point there's not more acceleration. And therefore, basically, it makes sense to stay in this at least half automatic mode, because you don't need to, you know, exceed the RPM limit. It doesn't make any sense. But it's at least interesting that it's there and you can absolutely use it. So a great emotional car, definitely for the motorway. Also suspension-wise, the good thing is it is stiff and stable, definitely, but at the same time it's reasonably comfortable. So this is also, to me, because recently we have driven a lot of those compact hot hatches, very sporty cars, sometimes even with better acceleration than this one here. I mean, this one here even below 5 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. But for example, recently Audi RS3 is even faster than this one here, although it's compact. Not this one here, it's mid-size segment. But this one here, the mid-size segment, does offer you more comfort for a taller driver. Suspension-wise, you have a longer wheelbase. You feel they have a little bit more stability on the motorway here. For me, as a tall driver, this is more fun in a way. Well, it's not more agile. More agile is still the compact vehicle because of the shorter wheelbase. But this one here more fun because you can enjoy more comfort. Those bucket seats, as I said earlier, yeah, I mean, they do a fairly good job in holding you tight and better for the race rig. But again, if you think about adding a little bit more comfort to this vehicle, then you should better stick with the normal sport seats, service-wise, and also from the build-wise. Those seats here are pretty thin. The other ones have just softer bolsters, and better for the everyday driving life. So when I played around here a little bit, consumption is about 11.5 liters. But I can also just, for your interest, give you the minimum consumption figure at, using the cruise control. That's always good to know. So I'm going to the comfort mode, and I'll put it to reset, and then I also use the cruise control. The Distronic is now mounted here at the steering wheel with a C-Class facelift. So no separate stall column here anymore at the steering wheel. Now I'm at about 120, and we're also going slightly downhill. And then of course you can score the lowest consumption figures. This 6-cylinder engine does not necessarily consume more fuel than some of the very small, high-tuned 2-liter turbo petrol engines, for example. So it doesn't mean that it is a big consumption choice for example. Of course, it mostly depends on what you're actually doing with the vehicle. It's a little bit unrealistic as we go downhill, but we soon go uphill again, and I can tell you something more about it. So it's also packed with the assistance systems features. So we have the blind spot monitor. Well, no one is overtaking us at the moment, so nothing will happen in this respect. But there will be a red triangle in the side mirror. Then the Distronic Plus is available. It is also available here then with the steering assist, that the car keeps itself in the lane. Don't take your hands off the steering wheel, but you see that the car is actually leading the way. It is assisting you, and when I keep my hand off the steering wheel for a too long time, the car will also say, "Evil Thomas, please don't do that. It's not safe," as in right now. And then after a while, the function will just stop, and ultimately the car will also stop. So keep your hands at the steering wheel. You can also, if you don't want this assisting feature, deactivate it at the left side of the steering wheel, and then I'm completely free to steer again. And wow, the reaction, the feedback that the car gives here also at higher speeds, is really, really something amazing. So almost feels go-kart-like, although we are already at 4.70 meters in length. What I don't like is this run-off road protection. Well, sorry, Volvo calls it that way. When I'm coming, here to the side, the car is warning. Yeah, it's good, but I think it would be better if the car would react with a little counter steer. But what the car usually does now at Mercedes, it's using the brakes. Let's see here. not doing it. It seems to be a little bit smoother here in those vehicles, in the new ones we've recently had. For example, also especially in the new A-Class. Yeah, when you have the steering assist, it does countersee a little bit, but here, strange. Now the lane assist doesn't really work properly. I'm not sure why. But what we've experienced in the A-Class was the car really hammered the brakes, and that was pretty annoying. But this one here, obviously still an older version, and to me in this case a little bit more pleasing. You can still deactivate both systems, then you're free to do whatever, and just use the Distronic Plus as a cruise control, keeping the distance in the car in front of you. I think sides, those blind spot monitor, and also the Distronic to keep the distance. Those are definitely two features that really make sense. So we drop down with the speed a little bit before next overtaking maneuver, that I can show you also some acceleration uphill. Here we could score as low as 7 liters on 100 kilometers, the lowest consumption figure, cruise control on the motorway. That is theoretically possible, but of course not a really realistic figure if you take everything in mind. The higher consumption was, at about 11 something, and usually the truth is then something in between. And I'll keep you updated later on what happens, in the full time we drive this car. But usually my experience tells me it's something between 9 and 10 liters for this vehicle, and we score equal consumption figures with the 2-liter turbos in those compact hatches, for example. So that's about the Autobahn driving. Is that you still have a normal mid-size vehicle, but then sportly tuned. So you're also very well in control. So it's a little bit easier to drive than, for example, with a true sports car. A little bit, less nervous, I would say. And also with the all-wheel drive, really good in control always. I really like the new suspension setup. So if you ask me what's the biggest difference if you compare it pre-facelift and now the facelift version, the suspension is actually soft, comfortable, great view here to the Mosel River. So it's somewhat soft and sporty at the same time. You don't have that often. So really cool. Now this next hairpin corner, let's see. Shifting down very well. Cool. That is That's some Autogefuehl for sure. So enjoy those corners with me. Natural steering feeling, really nice. Driving uphill should be even more fun. I think when we finish this short part, we just turn it around and drive uphill, then you'll also hear something more of the sound. Steering, I've experienced that quite often with Mercedes, is good and really natural. To me, it could be a little bit more progressive, that you don't have to steer that much. But that's also, I think it's a rather preference. Some like to steer a little bit more, some like it a little bit more progressive. What about you? Tell me in the comments. But really great fun vehicle. And the C43 is indeed my favorite of this lineup because it's sporty, but still you remain a certain comfort, especially when you go with the normal base sport seats. It looks good, or it looks sporty, but it's not too much, and still everyday capable with this all-wheel drive. Now I'll turn around and just go up this hill once more again for you. Probably this will be even more fun. turn it around here with the automatic gearbox, shifting here on the right side. The guy's driving behind me, probably want to hair. What is this guy doing now? So what you would rather have with the C63 is that, you know, the rear end slides out a little bit more. So that's, you know, for more skilled drivers probably. But then again, for public roads, of course, it doesn't make so much sense because you always have to think about safety. So this is really a very cool setup that you can have a lot of driving fun, but at the same time remain with this rather safe all-wheel drive and good distribution. You have definitely a rear wheel bias. You are more pushed from behind than you're pulled in the front. That's for sure. And I mean, you could also, you know, with the Sport Plus mode here, already the stability control is drawn back a little bit, so you can play around with the car a little bit more. But when I accelerate out of the corners, I still feel that I'm also having a little bit torque on the front wheels. So it's not, of course, a purest sports car, but so much fun and such a great control. And you definitely feel this power upgrade it has received. You're now at those 390 horsepower, so it's definitely more powerful than the predecessor, or like the pre-facelift version. And also, you know, the whole tuning of the engine. It's not one of those very new engines yet, so it's rather a classic one, so no 48 volt board net, but it still does really a tremendous job. Wow. So now to our conclusion for today with Mercedes C-Class facelift in general, and especially the C43 sedan, the Mercedes-AMG. Well, this one here is truly a dream mid-size sedan, no doubt. Exterior, very elegant styling. Well, the rear, I'm more favor with the coupe and the convertible versions for sure. On the interior, a very good build quality. You also get nice sustainable seats from the base setup if you like. And this new infotainment system layout. It's optional, you do not have to go for it. It's also, again, extra in the price. But, you know, it's a useful upgrade for sure if you want something more fancy. But still no touchscreen. I think, you know, it's about time, and they show that, you know, with the new MBUX. We've seen it in the new Mercedes Sprinter and the new Mercedes A-Class, and will also come to the other models bit by bit. But here, obviously, you know, the whole system was obviously not ready for it, or they didn't want to invest so much money in the facelift here. Driving wise, I think it's even a little bit more comfortable than the one before. So the one before was a little bit rougher maybe suspension wise. Here they've tuned this adaptive suspension that it both gives you comfort and also the very sporty ride, and it's a very fun ride and a great sound for sure. You don't need an 8-cylinder to have a great sound here. The 6-cylinder does a very good job, and it's also not a big problem that it's not handmade by one person. Really does a good job. And considering it is a performance car and performance engine, the consumption is still relatively okay if we compare it also with other vehicles. Price-wise, by the way, standard C-Class starts about 30,000 euros or $30,000. And this one here, C43, about 60. So this one then double the price. Gets really expensive with some more extras. The top infotainment even more, 70 at least, 75. That gets really expensive. So a better price performance here would be a C300 or a C400 then. Maybe get it then with the AMG line for the looks. Then you also get my favorite diamond pin grille still. So that one would be my advice actually. And you know, to have a better price performance ratio and still have a very decent version. Again, if you want it more versatile, check out the estate version. We'll sure deliver you some more content as well. And we also have content on the coupe and the convertible. You can check that out on Autogefuehl too. What do you think about those facelift changes and in general about the C43? Is that one your favorite of the C-Class? Tell me in the comments, and also tune in next time.